SCP-1284, Object Class Euclid. SCP-1284-1 is a series of pre-menarchal female humans that have undergone severe, permanent, and apparently spontaneous alteration in physiology and psychology. Only one living instance of -1 has ever been located at one time, but the global nature of the anomaly makes definite confirmation impractical. All instances of -1 can be considered to suffer from a unique psychosis, fully described in document 1284-01-A. -1 has smaller than normal ball heads in its hip and shoulder joints, allowing them to luxate easily, but a positive identification requires confirmation of sphincters in the surrounding blood vessels or direct observation of an SCP-1284-2 formation event. -1 does not, and possibly cannot, respond to either its designation or its birth name, but will answer to any fair approximation of Moon's Bride, and apparently any language, even if it has no knowledge of the language in question. At sundown local time, during a full moon, when -1 is under high stress, or when -1 is exposed to direct moonlight, see above, one or more of its limbs will dislocate out of its ball joints and sphincters and the surrounding blood vessels will close. This provokes the onset of apoptosis of tissues distal to the closed sphincters, followed by immediate detachment of the afflicted limb. Over the course of approximately 5 seconds, a new SCP-1284-2 instance will assemble itself from each shed limb. Instances of -2 are carnivorous, quadrupedal masses of flesh with rudimentary mouths and teeth. When viewed directly, instances of -2 give the visual illusion of being domesticated rabbits, but indirect viewing, such as in a mirror or via video feed or tactile examination, reveals that they are in fact hairless and mostly skinless, as well as lacking a distinct head, tail, or discernible sensory organs. -2 instances will invariably attack and attempt to consume any living being other than -1 or other -2 instances that they have an unobstructed path to. As it consumes tissue, a -2 instance incorporates it into its own mass, increasing in size until it reaches a total weight of 6.2 kilograms. At that point, it will begin to rapidly reorganize its constituent tissue, and over a period of 7 seconds split into two 3.1 kilogram instances of -2. 1 out of every 8 instances of -2 formed in this way will attempt to path its way back to -1 and feed itself piecemeal to -1. Even when instructed to the contrary, -1 will invariably cooperate to the best of its ability with -2's attempts to feed it. Imaging tests have indicated that -1's stomach becomes internally larger as needed to accommodate tissue from -2 without changing in external measurements. If exposed to a sunlight-equivalent light spectrum, -2 instances spontaneously undergo liquefaction, and -1 will begin to regenerate lost limbs at a rate of 0.2 kilograms an hour, if it has consumed enough biomass to do so. While -1's limb regeneration has not been observed to violate conservation of mass, the replacement cells form spontaneously, rather than being divided from existing cells by mitosis. Menarche has been invariably fatal to instances of -1, resulting in continuous rapid hemorrhaging of the endometrium until death by exsanguination. Attempts to stop or slow the bleeding have to date all been unsuccessful due to anomalous, drastic increases in blood pressure and spontaneous thrombolysis. -1 instances indicate awareness that this will occur, with expressed feelings about it varying from slight nervousness to eager anticipation. -1 instances are actively uncooperative with Foundation attempts to delay or prevent Menarche. In the event of the current -1 instance expiring, a female child between the ages of 2 and 5 living in a rural community of less than 1,000 people becomes a new instance of -1 and will begin to exhibit -1's abnormal behaviors. The current instance of -1 SCP-1284-18 is a human female of Indian descent. Years old as of. It invariably introduces itself as Kendrani, contrary to its birth certificate, which indicates its given name is -18 suffers from an additional psychosis similar to depersonalization disorder without successful reality testing, ultimately forming a personal narrative in which unpleasant events and stimuli are derealized entirely. Although this disturbance is not standard amongst -1 instances and is not considered anomalous at this time, staff interacting with -18 are to be discouraged from challenging this narrative. Addendum. Research into connection between SCP-1284 and other leporine anomalies associated with the moon, such as SCP-1282 and SCP-1640, is ongoing. A connection between the King mentioned by -11 and SCP-2686 has been ruled out. Addendum. Attempt to prevent menarche through surgical removal of -13's uterus and ovaries failed. Subject regenerated organs in the same manner as limbs. Second attempt denied approval. Addendum. Attempt to prevent menarche through malnourishment of -13 failed. Subject experienced menarche despite condition and expired at age 12. Addendum. Attempt to prevent menarche through hormonal treatment of -14 failed. Subject experienced menarche and expired at age 12. Post-mortem testing indicates that subject's hormone levels were corrected to within expected unmedicated levels by unknown method. Addendum. Attempt to prevent menarche through hormonal treatment and regular blood monitoring of -15 failed. Subject unexpectedly experienced menarche and expired at age 13. Blood sample taken during menarche indicated correction of hormone levels consistent with previous tests. Addendum. Hormonal treatment not started on -16. Subject was suffering from severe pneumonia as a complication of a measles infection when initially secured, and despite the best efforts of Foundation and local medical personnel, expired 35 hours later at age 4. Addendum. Blood sample taken from -17 24 hours ahead of the regular sampling schedule indicated a higher rate of hormone correction than previous tests had indicated. Preliminary randomization of sampling schedule approved. Addendum. Attempt to prevent menarche through hormonal treatment and irregular blood monitoring of -17 successful. Subject punctured own carotid artery with pen and expired at age 16. Footnotes 1. For full list of languages tested so far, see document 1284-05-A. For full list of confirmed working appellations, see document 1284-05-B. For partial list of confirmed non-working appellations, see document 1284-05-C. So to suggest a language or appellation for testing, contact Dr. Stoker during office hours. As of incident 1284-15-009, testing with non-natural invented languages must be signed off by SCP-1284-1's psychologist and at least 2 linguists of Level 3 clearance or above familiar with -1's circumstances. 2. SCP-1284-2's pathing abilities are incompletely understood, but do not appear to be based on smell, line of sight, echolocation, electrical signals, or the detection of vibration. If presented with a maze and two possible targets, one physically closer but with a longer required path, and the other physically farther away but with a shorter required path, -2 instances will invariably navigate the maze to the target at the end of the short path, with no wrong turns. The possible use of -2 in locating lost operatives in spatially inconsistent locations is being looked into. 3. See document 1284-01-A for full behavioral profile. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-1284-1, currently SCP-1284-18, is to be contained in standard-size humanoid living quarters at Bioresearch Area 12, fitted with grow lamps that cover a sun-equivalent light spectrum in addition to normal lighting fixtures. There are to be no windows in its living space, and should a situation arise where -1 must be moved through or into any space of windows, those windows must be completely blacked out by any means available. Under no circumstances is -1 to be exposed to direct moonlight, as defined as a direct line of sight between any part of -1's body and an illuminated portion of the moon. Under normal circumstances, -1 is to be kept on a vegetarian diet, given 3 meals per day, and may request 1 snack between meals. Following an SCP-1284-2 formation event, -1 is to be fed formula 1284-A by nasogastric feeding tube and exposed to a sunlight equivalent light spectrum for 15 minutes out of every hour until it has fully regenerated all 4 limbs and is capable of self-locomotion. There is to be at least 1 nurse on call for all times to help -1 relocate its shoulders and or hips should they become dislocated outside of a -2 formation event. -1 is to be kept on hormonal treatments to delay the onset of puberty as long as possible, and tranquilizers to reduce the likelihood of a -2 formation event. Blood samples are to be taken at random intervals, no longer than 1 month and no shorter than 5 days, tested for hormone levels, and -1's medication dosage adjusted accordingly. A psychological evaluation is to be performed bi-weekly. Once hormone treatments have begun, -1 is to be kept on continuous suicide watch. Any media -18 is exposed to must be pre-screened to ensure that it does not contain any objects, animals, or depictions thereof found listed on documents 1284-06-A or -B8. Should -1 expire for any reason, Protocol 1284 Alpha is to be executed immediately to identify the new -1 and pull it from the general population. Outside of testing, all instances of -2 are to be destroyed via exposure to sun-equivalent light spectrum. The remaining cell slurry is non-anomalous and may be disposed of in whatever manner is most expedient.